Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another weekly fighting roundup, and of course got to boxing and MMA news today. If you are new around here though and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So of course, starting off with the boxing news, and the first bit is kind of boxing, kind of MMA news. Sonnen is set to fight Silva June 15th in a rematch, seemingly going to be in boxing, and the call out type, well, not call out type video, but the announcement type video from Chael Sonnen was entertaining, and to be completely honest, Chael Sonnen is one of my favourite fighters, so entertainment wise he's one of my favourite fighters, and I'm just going to be very excited to see. Obviously it's another one of these fighters coming from MMA to go into boxing, but it's a good fight, and obviously all that happened when they actually fought in UFC, it does have a storyline there, even if it is many years on from their peaks. Moving on now though to, I suppose, maybe conventional boxing news. Russell vs Puello and Adames vs Gorsha will fight June 15th. Lopez vs Claglet, Ramirez vs Benitez, Akali vs Walsh 2, Polanco, Sedano, Medina and Polanco will fight to June 29th. Interesting fight, Lopez vs Claglet. I mean, it's not exactly the best of matchups. Even Eddie Hearn said it wasn't really the best, and I don't know if that's just to keep Lopez fighting and he's wanting to fight, which I suppose isn't a bad thing, but perhaps maybe there was better options than that. Fury has activated the rematch clause versus usyk, so it is most likely that was expected to happen, and yeah, so we are probably going to see it hopefully by the end of the year, if there isn't too many problems with that. Lane versus Kane, Taylor, Heaney versus Pauls 2, Davies versus Masood, Dakers versus Adelaide, Cameron versus McCarled, and Cooper versus Esmond will fight to July 20th. That's a great Magnificent 7 card, another one of them from Queensbury, and hopefully I'll be in attendance if I can be, and some great fights on there with some fighters who I've had the pleasure of speaking to. I mean, Lane versus Kane is going to be an interesting one. Lane always brings the heat, and Taylor, another progressing fights for him. Heaney vs Pauls 2, the first fight was such a good fight to have it made again. Pauls getting that chance again, where perhaps there was talks where Heaney might have moved on. It's nice to see that he's getting that opportunity. Pauls again. Davies vs Masood is a nice matchup as well. Dakers versus Adelaide is a very good underrated fight in my opinion. Cameron vs McCarled is very nice to see Cameron getting back fighting at a world level, and Cooper vs Esmond is also another very good matchup. And so in general, great to see these fights happening, and with the likes of Davies vs Masood being made, it's also showing that camaraderie now between Matchroom and Queensbury, which we know, and yeah, it's just great to see. Goriat will fight Nunes on July 20th. Undisputed, the game will be released October 11th. Thought I'd mention it. Looks alright, some of the Undisputed games look alright, but I just don't always know if the graphics are the best. Usyk is in the new Ring Magazine pound for pound champion. I know it didn't really last too long there, but in my opinion, he's second, but that's just my opinion at the end of the day. Everybody has their own opinion on it, and the Ring Magazine have their own opinions and their views on it, and I'm not against Usyk being number one, and I think we're just in a great time at the moment, an underrated time of boxing, where we're seeing these three great fighters in Crawford, Usyk and Inoue battling it out for that number one pound for pound spot, and it's just rare to see three fighters really contesting that spot. Fisher will fight Babbage July 6th. I feel like that's going to be an entertaining matchup. Arthur versus Cameron will fight June 21st. Kunemoto versus Carney 2. Yu Ixiati versus Conway. McKenna versus Estella. And Dickinson versus Takasano will fight July 15th. Joyce versus Shizora. McCann versus Belusa 2. And Hamed will fight July 27th. I said a while ago, right after the Joyce win versus Ali, that I wouldn't be surprised if Joyce fights Shizora next, and I got it right. Not to blow my own trumpet too much, but I was happy that I got that one right. And it's an interesting matchup. Joyce really didn't look the best in his last fight, and Shizora hasn't been looking the best in a while now. And there's a lot of him being past his best, which we've seen. And so I suppose for Shizora, for Joyce, making money wise probably is the best option. Like realistically, I think Sam Jones said it, and I saw like Bacoli was in talks, but he just wouldn't have bought the same kind of revenue and names and things like that. So on a financial standpoint, it makes sense, and it's also nice to see McCann versus Beluta too. Rodriguez has joined Top Rank, and he will fight June 29th. Garcia's joined Golden Boy. Delgado is set to fight Flores August 10th. A USA vs Mexico 5v5 is being rumoured. It's in talks with Crawford vs Canelo, Plant vs Munguia, Stevenson vs Cruz, and Figueroa vs Lopez, and Fulton vs Neri as the fights. They are great fights. There is a 5v5 coming this weekend, but I would have to say these matchups make for a better 5v5. Not saying that the one we've got coming this weekend is bad, but that is another level. And obviously, there's a lot around Crawford moving up and fighting Canelo. It seems like they really want that to happen. I still don't know how much I'm fond of that actually happening, but I'm sure it will be an entertaining fight if it does actually end up happening. But yeah, just weight wise, I don't really know what my opinions are on that. But Plant vs Munguia is a great matchup. Stevenson vs Cruz, another great matchup. It's going to be an awkward style matchup, that one. It'd be interesting to see who would come out on top. Figueroa vs Lopez is another amazing matchup, and Fulton vs Neri, the two fighters coming off the Inoue defeat, would be interesting to see with them moving up in weight, both of them as well, how they would both do. Moving on, Cruz has tested positive for a performance-enhancing drug. That is Erica Cruz, another matchroom fighter testing positive. Now, it's been a little while since we've had one, but lo and behold, we've got another one now, and we're going to have to wait and see what progresses with her. And it hasn't seemed to have been talked about too much as of recent. Usyk and Johnson are set to be starring in a film called Smashing Machine, I believe. It's going to be out next year. It's just thought I'd mention it. Shiraz vs Williams is a WBC world title final eliminator, which is nice. It got confirmed by Eddie Hearn this week. Mayer has called out Ryan, but it seems like Ryan's not really too interested as of yet because she was chasing more titles. Garcia's B sample has tested positive for a banned PED, so the one that is A sample tested positive for his B samples as well. Garcia seems unbothered as ever, but I don't know what that's going to mean for the Haney result. It probably will be given a no contest at some point, but yeah, I don't know what's going on with Garcia, but I feel like nobody ever really knows what's going on with Garcia, to be completely honest. Richards will fight Woodall June 14th. Jacobs is set to fight Mosley July 6th. Davis has joined Matchroom. IBF have ordered Kakase versus Nunes. I think that is a good matchup. Kiss FM will be performing at the Bilham Smith vs React Pro 2 fight. Thought I'd mention that. Turner, Herrera, and Birchall have joined Queensbury. Maxayo is set to fight Ramirez June 15th. Hearn and Bellew will play at Soccer Aid. That was announced this week. That's an interesting pairing. I don't know why Bellew's on the World 11. Anyway, moving on. Fundora is set to fight Spence in October. That's an interesting matchup. Spence getting straight away a world title fight, moving up into welterweight, super welterweight. So I don't necessarily know if that's overly fair, but it doesn't surprise me, to be completely honest. Vargas will fight June 21st. Aram has said Usyk versus Fury 2 will probably happen in November or December, so that October time that they're thinking of probably isn't going to be the case, which is no real surprise. Hackett has joined Matchroom. Bahachuk is in talks to fight Ramos Jr. Aram thinks Fury will fight Joshua in 2025, even if he loses to Usyk again, and that's just because of the side of that fight. Hopefully that'll happen. You can't really look too far ahead like that in boxing, but I'd like to hope. Haney has called out Cruz. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen. Usyk has requested the IBF not to strip him. I mean, it is a bit stupid for him to be stripped, and just for Hrgovic to then fight probably Joshua for it or something. But in general, it's just not really fair, and Usyk's done all this to become undisputed, and then to just be able to hold it for such a small amount of time. If the IBF do strip him, hopefully they will accept his request and just not strip him. Tillman won via TKO round 2 vs Bullock. Harris Jr. won via decision versus Irwin. Cardozo won via decision versus Lopez. Juk M. Bayev won via TKO round 5 versus Redcatch. Selen Adak won via TKO round 2 versus Planker. Zeskny won via decision versus Perwilsik. Garcia won via KO round 2 versus Plawecki. Sir Kelwicks won via decision versus Cuesta. Sir Kazin won via TKO round 10 versus Kota. Coley won via TKO round 1 versus Rozansky to become WBC World Bridgerweight Champion, and I will hold my hands up. I got my prediction very, very wrong, and I'm sure there was a few people that was keen to tell me about that, but yeah, no, I put my hands up. I got it wrong, and I don't know. I thought Okolie could just resort back to his old ways and not be willing to take too much punishment or anything like that. But Andrew Rosansky will be able to get into range better. But it's fair play to Okolie. He really showed class. Rosansky looked awful in there, to be completely honest, and just yeah, he just looked really sloppy, messy, and just didn't really want it at all. And Okolie looked good. He looked like he was close to resorting back to them hugging ways, but then stopped himself and pushed his opponent away and worked off of it and used his range, and that's where he was picking his shots. And it looked a lot better. That's what you want to see. That's where he does show that talent that he does have, and that's a good performance. And it seems like he might fight Lorena next, but certain people have been talking like about some huge fights for him, like Wilder and stuff. I think that's what George Groves said, but not getting too far ahead of myself at the moment with him, but nonetheless, it was nice to see a good performance from him, and the first really good performance from him we've seen in a while. So that's impressive. Pagan won by unanimous decision versus Hilly. Akhmedov won by a TK round 2 versus Diaz. Franklin Jr. won by a stoppage round 6 versus Vargas. That was a good stoppage from Franklin Jr. He looks spiteful now. He has gone up a bit in weight and was perhaps slowing down a little bit, but Vargas was tough and Franklin broke him down and he was going to the body nice. He was unloading shots nice, and there is big fights out there for him, and it's nice to see Salita Promotions giving him that platform still. And yeah, so I feel like there are going to be big fights around for him in the heavyweight division, and it will be intriguing to see who he will possibly get thrown in next against. Costa won via points versus Flores. Daly won via TK round 4 versus LeBourne. Nadeem won via points versus Polasic. Lee won via points versus Morena. Welch won via KO in round 1 versus Santander. King won via stoppage round 6 versus Bajne. Gadari won via KO in round 3 versus Lifego to become IBO Continental Super Bantamweight Champion. Gallagher won via unanimous decision versus Levy to become British and Commonwealth Super Bantamweight Champion. Ballinger won via unanimous decision versus Benjamin to become IBF European Welterweight Champion. And that was another good GBM card. I'm always a fan of them, and they've always treated me nice, and so I'm always one to be watching their events, and they are progressing nicely. In their first one down at York Hall, there were some great dust ups and traditional York Hall type fights, and Ballinger is an interesting entity, and don't necessarily know how far he'll be able to get, but he's there for entertaining fights. Gallagher put up a good performance against Levy. To be completely honest, she did fight very well and kind of did show a level of ability above Levy, which was a little bit of a shame to see because I'm a fan of Levy, but nonetheless, Gallagher was impressive, and the likes of Welch as well looking good. I was a fan of Nadeem early on, being aggressive. King looked alright, he looked entertaining. I'm glad to see everything's alright with Lifego. And yeah, in general, another good GBM card. And like I say, bringing the big names and bringing the big eyes to the arguable small hall, but it's not really small hall anymore type of shows. Moving on, WBC have ordered a Coley versus Lorena, like I mentioned. Taz won by KO in round 2 versus Tran Dafir. Forgior won via TK in round 3 versus Gigo Shivili. Nielsen won via TK in round 2 versus Maliki. Hussein won via unanimous decision versus Seslak. Zarin won via TK in round 4 versus Weck. Hussein won via KO in round 1 versus Pihar. Borj Guard won via stoppage round 2 versus Alilovic. Hansen won by KO round 1 versus Oglic. Withers won by stoppage round 5 versus Weber. Forsland won by unanimous decision versus Settin to remain WBC and WBO World Bantamweight Champion. And she is somebody now that really is needing to get some more respect in the women's division. She's fighting well. I haven't managed to see all of the fight, but I saw little snippets of it, and it looked entertaining. The first round especially looked entertaining. I did my prediction prior to the when they were going to fight the first time, and it got called off, so I didn't do another prediction for it because my opinion was the same. And she boxed well. She did get the better of every kind of interaction that they had from what I saw. And she, like I say, is somebody who I believe deserves that recognition and hopefully will be getting big fights soon, as she does have, of course, the 2 belts. Buttigieg won via points versus Isati. Visoli won via KO in round 4 versus Dubai. Lidard won via KO in round 1 versus McCormack. Coley won via unanimous decision versus Patera. Donovan won via TK round 9 versus Ritson. Clark won via KO in round 9 versus Zorro to become British Cruiserweight Champion. Catterall won via unanimous decision versus Taylor. And speak about that card, probably, arguably the biggest card of the week. I would probably have to agree. And to speak about some of the fights, Lidard impressive stoppage versus Soli, impressive stoppage, but the Lidard one especially was probably what he needed, to be completely honest, and boost that confidence of his. And it was a shame to see McCormack go out like that. He's somebody who I've had the pleasure of speaking to on this channel, and it was sad to see. But Lidard I've also spoken to, and he seems like a nice lad as well. And so, good, impressive victory, stepping up nicely. That's what you want to be seeing. Cully, unanimous decision. He was boxing well. He looked good at times and kept his range and did frustrate Patera. And it's just at times there are just similar things which just seems like he've never really improved on from when he suffered that defeat. And it's just that continuous chin in the air and just poor defense at times. He moves well, but he's just a very tall figure and hasn't really got the power to seemingly get opponents off of him. And so I don't necessarily know, like, that was a outclassing performance, but I don't necessarily know how far he'll be able to get and if he's ever really going to be able to reach world kind of rankings. Donovan, that was a nice performance. I was a fan of that. He looked clean, he looked sharp. That's what I want to be seeing. I'm sure that he's going to keep improving with every fight, and perhaps his power is going to come for a little bit more. But even on the back foot, he was looking good, and Ritson was in his face for a lot of the earlier rounds, and he was dealing with that very well and picking his shots nicely. And in the end, just completely outwore Ritson. And Ritson it's sad to see what's happened because it is just age and things like that. But I do believe he probably should retire soon, and if not now. And he just looked very spent by the end of that fight and just looked like he didn't want to be in there at all. And from going from somebody who had such a big platform and a big following and a big backing, and I just don't know necessarily where he can go from there. Clark, nice stoppage. He looked frustrated at times and seemed to struggle with range a bit at times and getting a rhythm, which Zorro did well to stop him from. But when he did eventually do it, he caught Zorro. Zorro was keeping his hands quite low, trying to do a type Philly shell type thing, and was getting hurt from doing it. And yeah, I just don't necessarily know where the chin is of Zorro, but it was sad to see because I mean he is somebody who's a nice guy and somebody who I wanted to do well. But Clark, it's going to be intriguing to see because that has shown a few weaknesses in his game now, and stepping up will be intriguing to see where he goes from there. And then the main event, Catterall getting that decision victory versus Taylor, in which, my opinion, he deserved to win. The scorecards were a little bit off, but at the end of the day, he got the win, in which I believe, like I say, he deserved. It was another close fight. I got my prediction right. I said that he would win, and I knew it would be relatively close as well, but it's just beautiful jab work from Catterall, continuous jab work, and even when rounds were going Taylor's way, he was able to do certain things to be able to nick it back in certain times, and it was a little bit messy at points and things like that, but Catterall's just got very good sharp boxing. And do I feel like there'll be a trilogy? Probably not. There might be, but probably not. I don't necessarily know if there's anywhere really Taylor can go from here, but bar a trilogy, but I just don't know if there will be one next. And it was funny to see what Bob Aaron was saying after the fight and everything, but I feel like the scorecards were relatively fair um, in the end. And yeah, so Catterall called out Lopez. I don't know if that's going to happen either. It seems like, with everything Aaron's saying, that's not going to happen in the UK if that does happen. But for the moment, congratulations to him. Got that deserved victory after having to wait so long after the first fight for it. Moving on, Arobio won via unanimous decision versus Camejo. Matthew won via TK round 4 versus Gorgon. Fendero won via unanimous decision versus Mancia. Guerrero won via TK round 1 versus Larson. Gormont won via split decision versus Fernandez. Makhmudov won via KO round 2 versus Rov Canin. Now won via TK round 4 versus Gomez. And Bealey won via KO in round 1 versus Heffron to remain WBC Continental America's super middleweight champion. And Bealey, yet again, another early stoppage. Sad to see Heffron, somebody who I'd spoke to, go out in that fashion. But he dared to be great, and it's another one of them British stories. But Bealey really didn't overlook his opponent there and really did just put it on him, and he was just too much. And Bealey is good, and I'm intrigued to see where he can go next. I've been waiting a long time for a big fight for him, and hopefully that will be happening soon. Moving on, Bell won via unanimous decision versus Ham. Gang won by split decision versus Cray Cray. Vargas won via unanimous decision versus Park. Megan won via unanimous decision versus Fangs. Vampira drew versus Loza. Brooke drew versus Van Zandt. And to speak about that Misfits card, my predictions. The Bell unanimous decision I got wrong. He did get hurt early on. I said that Ham would be able to get in close, rough him up, and be able to get a stoppage that way, and he did hurt him early on. But Bell was boxing well, and as soon as he put Ham onto the back foot, forced him onto the back foot, that was where he's having a lot of success. So he was impressive, and he is an entertaining fighter and he's gonna keep getting big matchups now. Yuri Ganger got that prediction right. I was quite happy with that one. It seemed as though Cray came on good early, but then Yuri Gang was boxing better on into throughout the fight, and Cray didn't come out into the last round quite as much as perhaps what he should have done. And in the end, Yuri Gang, just about getting that decision victory. And I don't feel like he's ever really somebody who's going to be stopping loads of opponents. Vargas. Park, that was a strange fight. Park, I said, would win. Obviously, I got that wrong. Park had him hurt, but Vargas was using his straight shots relatively nice at times, a little bit messy. Well, quite messy to be completely honest, but it was an alright fight, I suppose. Megan, Fangs, that was another strange one. Fangs got dropped. I don't necessarily see if I care for Fangs to come back for boxing again in Misfits, but nonetheless, it happened. The fight. Vampiro drew vs Loza, got that wrong. I said that Megan would win. Brooke drew vs Van Zandt. That was a good fight. Like it lived up to the hype. I mean, Brooke getting that knockdown early was impressive. She's got good timing on her and seems to land that shot consistently on fighters coming in, and she's getting better. She's improving. It's a lot less messy. She does sometimes still have issues, and like of course, she's nowhere near the perfect professional level. But and Van Zandt did show that at times she was boxing cleanly at points, and it's a good matchup. I would like to see it again. I don't think it'd be quite so competitive, but it was good, and yeah, like I say, I'll be a fan to see it again. And Van Zandt is very tough, but you got to give her that credit. Moving on, Catterall's called out Lopez, like I say. Hearn says says a USA vs UK show is being made for later this year, and that's all the boxing news. Moving on now to the MMA news. Not too much news, no real cards to speak about, just fight news really. McCann vs Brazil and Wood vs Pineda will fight July 27th. Sarigi will fight Wilson June 15th. Lorgran will fight Tavares, and Banon will fight Oliveira. July 27th. Tapura is set to fight Holloway in September, possibly on the bill of the O'Malley vs Valashvili card. That would make for an entertaining fight. Seems as though Volkanovski's not going to be getting that rematch. Parkin will fight Zeski July 27th. Tawachai will fight Natawut 2 June 7th. Elliott versus Parsons and Duncan versus Brizek will fight July 27th. Bankov will fight Van June 15th. Musasi has been released by Bellator. Hill will fight Ulberg June 29th. Bukakas versus Precino and Patterson vs Crosby will fight July 27th. Gary will fight Page June 29th. That's an entertaining fight, which I'm sure is going to be good. Figueiredo will fight Vera August 3rd, and Figueiredo is making a bit of a name for himself, moving up in division now, and if he can beat Vera, then that's an impressive victory, and that puts him around a high level in that division, and so it'll be intriguing to see how he does. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did, indeed like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.